If you or a loved one got sick or, God forbid, passed away from COVID-19, I have some good news for you. And the good news is that the Virginia legislature has stepped up and passed a law that has gone into effect as of July 1st, 2021. That is retroactive, meaning it covers anyone who got sick or, God forbid, passed from COVID-19 and is a healthcare worker or a first responder, going all the way back, in some cases, all the way back to March 12th of 2020, when this whole thing first got started. I'm Joe Miller, workers' compensation attorney here in Virginia, North Carolina. And today, I just want to tell you a little bit about this new law that's gone into effect as of July 1st, 2021. And it establishes that, first of all, there's really two bills, but the first one establishes that healthcare providers, that's doctors, nurses, all the folks that work in hospitals who died or were disabled by COVID-19 between March 12th, 2020 and December 31st of this year, 2021, are going to be entitled to compensation under the Workers' Compensation Act if they can show that they were directly involved in diagnosing or treating persons known or suspected to have COVID-19. There's also a similar law that was passed that also covers the same kind of thing: firefighters, emergency medical personnel, law enforcement officers, and correctional regional jail officers who were disabled or died due to COVID, in their case from July 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2021. These laws augment or add to or supplement the statute on occupational disease. And that statute is Virginia Code 65.2-401.1. What this law now means is, as of July 1st, 2021, going retroactively in some cases all the way back to March 12th, 2020, if you contracted COVID-19 on the job and you fit into one of these categories of folks that I just mentioned, and you, in the case of a healthcare provider, you were directly involved in diagnosing or treating persons known or suspected to have COVID-19, then you are going to be covered because COVID-19 has now been added to the specific list of diseases that are covered as an occupational disease. And what that means is you're going to have a much easier time than you did before. As I mentioned in previous videos, had this law not been passed, then COVID-19 is just like any other condition that's called an ordinary disease of life, meaning you have to hit a very high standard of proof to prove that you contracted this from work. Now all that's thrown out the window, and basically the burden is shifted to the defense to prove that you did not get it at work, as long as you fulfill those conditions, meaning you are one of these folks that's mentioned in the statute, healthcare provider, a nurse, a doctor, what have you, or a first responder, those folks that I mentioned, and you contracted the disease between the dates mentioned, okay? So if you're one of those folks, you're gonna have a much easier time, or the family's gonna have a much easier time proving a death case under workers' compensation if that's what happened. Some of the more specifics of the statute: the healthcare worker has to have been treated for COVID-19 symptoms and being diagnosed by a medical provider with COVID-19 to qualify for compensation. If the illness occurred from March 12, 2020 until July 1st, 2020, all you got to have is basically the diagnosis, okay? After July 1st, 2020, for healthcare providers, you also have to have a COVID-19 positive test. I think the reason for that was because we didn't really have our act together as far as the testing until around July 1st, 2020. The bill also says that healthcare workers who refuse to get vaccinated for COVID-19, you're not going to be eligible for the workers' comp benefits. So if you were offered the vaccine and you refused, then you don't get the benefits of the Workers' Compensation Act. First of all, I want to give big praise and thanks and kudos to the Virginia legislature for stepping up, all the sponsors of the bill, all the folks who pushed this through. Because I've been saying for months that it's ridiculous. It looked to me like what was going on is they were fighting over who was going to be covered. The more folks you try to bring in, the more expensive it's going to be, and the more voices you're going to have that are going to be opposing this. So why don't you at least start out covering the folks that are trying to protect us and treat us for COVID-19? Why don't you try and get those people covered first? I mean, those are the people that are really most important in this whole thing. And I'm not saying I'm not taking any credit for it, but that is exactly what they did. They started out, with the bill, with HB 1985, which covers exactly what I said. healthcare providers directly involved in diagnosing or treating persons known or suspected to have COVID-19. And that's from, as I said, March 12th, 2020 onward, all the way to the end of this year, 2021. In addition to those folks, Senate Bill 1375 and HB 2207 also passed and cover workers' compensation for first responders who are diagnosed or died from COVID-19 after July 1st, 2020 through the end of this year. Again, that includes firefighters, police officers, correctional and regional jail officers, emergency medical services workers. All those first responders, you got to have a positive COVID-19 test and the symptoms of the disease to recover. Unfortunately, I want to say the lawmakers down in Raleigh, in North Carolina, seem to be stuck on this. They have not passed a bill like this, although they've been arguing about it for a while. Take a cue from Richmond and let's pass this thing to cover folks in North Carolina. As you know, I'm also admitted in North Carolina, so I'd like to see those folks covered too. They have not stepped up. I don't know what they're arguing about. The other thing that's wrong with the North Carolina statute, unlike Virginia, the proposed law is not retroactive, meaning that whenever they pass it, if they ever get around to passing it, let's say it passes at the end of this year, it's going to come into effect by the words in the statute. It's only going to come into effect then. It's not going to cover anybody because most folks have been vaccinated, and hopefully there won't be too many people around with COVID at that point. So it's a little too late. It's got to be retroactive or it's useless. As I've said, these new bills in Virginia have become law as of July 1st. They are retroactive in the case of healthcare providers to March 12th, 2020, all the way to December 30th, and they go forward all the way to December 31st at the end of this year. And the ones for first responders go from July 1st. What this means is that you will have a much easier time of proving your case because now COVID-19 is now an enumerated occupational disease for these categories of employees. If you or a loved one is one of these folks, either that means you're a healthcare provider in Virginia who is directly involved in treating or diagnosing COVID-19, or you are a emergency medical person, a firefighter, police officer, correctional or regional jail officer, and you need some help with workers' compensation, please don't hesitate to call us. You're going to have a much easier time now approving your claim, unlike the way it was before this, and we'd be happy to help any way we can. Again, I'm Joe Miller, workers' compensation attorney. I hope this has been informational for you and helped you. If you have any other questions at all about Virginia workers' compensation law or North Carolina workers' compensation law, please don't hesitate to give us a call or contact us at the email and number on the screen. Have a great day. God bless.